Happy Father's Day, Dawn.
Happy Father's Day to me.
How was your day?
Excellent. We
What-
had a great time as a family hiking, one of our favorite things to do. Not the same as when the kids were little, but watching three young adults go down the trail, it's pretty satisfying.
Where did you go?
We went to Lily Pad Lake from Wilderness area up in Frisco, Colorado, and Silverthorne. So a fun time.
That's cool. So you've been a father now for 17 plus years. How does it feel?
Ready to launch. Very proud of Gabe. He's a wonderful, wonderful young man, and he's ready to go out in the world and make his mark. We've always wanted to let the kids know they're deeply loved and that we wanted them to always be better than us, and they've accomplished that in so many ways. So I reflect and think, I'm looking forward to this next phase of being a father, where you're just coming alongside and being a friend and just supporting them however they need in life.
It's cool. So you have 3 teenagers now.
Yes.
17, 15, and 13. So it's a completely different life stage than when they were 1, 3, and 5, or 2, 4, and 6. And so I guess I just wanted to hear, how is it different? What is it like to be a teenage dad? Or a dad of teenagers, all teenagers?
I think, so the big part of our family that's very different is that the middle years, when they were 8, 10, and 12, we took off for adventures across the country. We sold everything off and started living in different places around the country and doing national parks and adventures. And those middle years were sweet. It was the very tail end for Gabe. He became a teenager, and it was a sweet spot for Isaac and Jaden. But I think I would contrast things with those years. They were sweet because they were always eager. They were always wanting to play, being in the family and tightly knit. We only had one car. We were able to just stay together all the time. I think the teenage years, we are rarely together. We're always in multiple places, and that has an impact on things because everybody's got their own life, and it's natural. They're developing. They want to pursue things. They have friendships and relationships. They have their own life. They have their own money. They have their own time. They have their own stress, relationships, and I think it's more about supporting and caring in a different way. It's not trying to just look out for their needs. It's more about readiness for when they want to have a conversation, when they want to engage on something that they're thinking about, and that timing is not something that we can just bring up. It's coming up at random times. It comes up when they had a long day, or they're just relaxing. Who knows? So I've had to shift, just learning how to be more supportive than directive. And so I would say the teenage years, they're happier in a different way. They're happier when you know that a lot of the work was already done.
That's neat. You said something about the balance of, or the difference between supportive versus directive. Like, how do you practically deal with that balance? Because they're not adults yet. They still kind of need training or direction, but at the same time, they might not want it.
Yeah, I think it would come up to something like, asking a certain question like, hey, you sure you want to do that? Instead of saying, don't do that. And I find myself doing that a lot more. Don't do that, doesn't work. Asking them a question and thinking about it opens up the dialogue and seems to be a lot more matched to where they're at right now.
And then being, I've seen you just be open-handed about their answer. Like, if you're asking the question, they have the freedom to say yes or no. So you have to be okay with the no. And that's
Yes.
sometimes hard as a parent.
Yes.
How do you deal with the emotion of that, or the disappointment of that you have to kind of feign as support?
Yeah, for me, I think I do have to process that. I don't like foolishness. I like wisdom. And so if I see foolishness, I try to walk myself through thinking long term. So I think about, okay, well, how did I learn lessons? I went through folly. I was learning by doing things. So it's, you know, I think it's more of an integrity thing. It's something I had to do. And I relate back to just that natural part of being a teenager.
That makes a lot of sense. It's wise.
Yeah, it's painful, but it's good. It's more effective, I would say. More efficient.
I've also heard you say to other parents that it's psychological warfare sometimes as being a parent of teenagers. What do you mean by that, and how do you win that warfare?
I think when they're really little, there's a big eagerness, like you're part of their life and you're their hero. Right, Dad? Right, Dad? That's something you would hear. You don't hear that at all now. When they get older, it's a little bit different, but now
they question everything.
They question you. You could say something that's exactly true, and it's still going to be challenged. And so that's not a bad thing. I think it's good gut check for my ego. And then the other part is that it's where they're at, and just if I did not love them, maybe I just try to be a dictator. But I do love them, so that's not what I want for them. I want them to think for themselves and do challenge things, but also be reasonable. So giving it a little bit of air, making it a more relaxed environment, it's worked out more. Yeah. So I think these teen years has taught me that. It's taught me to shift gears, and it's worked out better in the long run.
That's cool. I know you have a lot of desires for our kids, but what would you say are your like top 3? Like, what do you want? What do you want for them that you're trying to kind of coach them towards or lead them to?
I would want total wisdom, like that there's no desire to pursue things that are foolish that they already know or have to test them, but just choose wisdom. So things they've been raised with and they would already know. And in that they would live a life of faith, pursuing the one true God, learning to be in relationship with Him, and knowing that that is a road of great joy but uncertainty and requires courage. I would hope that we raise them in a way that they would have that courage, that clarity, that faith. And I think the third thing is we're all about laughter. We are about great times. So it's not about just trying to accomplish things or do things, but I want them to always be excellent at all things, but also play hard. Like, we live in an extremely exotic place up in the mountains here in Breckenridge, Colorado, and they've experienced so much. They have a lot of abilities that we've given them as parents and that God's given them. So I would hope that they take those abilities, that gift, and use it to live a life where they could be reflective, they could have great joy, they know what to do with themselves. They don't live unbalanced, they live balanced. They go hard and know that they have a lot of dimensions to themselves. That's what I would hope for them.
That's cool. So what advice would you, if you could, I feel like it's really humbling being a teenage parent, but from what you've learned so far, what advice would you give to other parents of teens?
Well, I would, the first thing we talked about is shift gears. Just recognize the fact that you're moving into a different stage. And we did it too when we were, and how did we learn? It might feel far away, but I think that helps. That, like, the things that used to work don't work anymore. So immediately shift. And then if you can't shift, might be something wrong with you. Might be something wrong with myself. Have to do some self-examination. Why can't you shift? What's in the way? And so, but I think if you can look at yourself as a friend, you know, a mentor, you're getting ready to launch somebody as a young adult that in any other era would have had to be sent off to war and go get a job and figure things out and leave your family. but this era, they're still hanging around for another 5 years. I think that's the perspective I have. It's like you're dealing with an adult. Shift.
Yeah. And then any just practical day-to-day things, week-to-week things that you feel like you've done well or that you want to do that you think that would be helpful?
Yeah, ironically, I think I've poured so much into our family and our kids, and I love them with all my heart. I think they have those things, that it's in them, and they're discovering what's inside them for themselves because they're making choices with those things that are part of them. And we've had so many conversations, so many things, but I think ironically about it feels selfish for me, but putting more into myself, like working out every day, making myself first, taking care of myself emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, because then I become a better friend, I become a better coach, and because I think most of it is not physical or directive, it's emotional and patience. And for me to have that, I have to invest a lot in myself so I can have that kind of patience, that kindness, that love for another person. Yeah, but if I'm stressed out, it's really hard. But ironically, just putting more into myself makes the whole situation better.
Well, then one thing you said before is about just being available. And so if you do that, then that does make yourself emotionally available. Like it opens up the time to be available for those random conversations, whether they're at the kitchen counter or around the dinner table or in a car. Like you can be emotionally present to be available for whatever they want to talk about.
Yeah, and I'm not interested anymore in jam-packing our schedules, or it's more about leaving a lot of space and seeing what they choose and then supporting them in that. And if it's something that doesn't seem wise, just challenging. It's like, are you sure? So what do you think about this? These are simple questions that I like to ask. But most of the choices I'm seeing our kids make, I'm really proud of. I don't really feel like I have to challenge much. The only times they're really just in fringes is when it's impinging on something that I want to do.
Or like they didn't take out the trash, or empty the dishwasher.
And those are things like agreements, learning how to keep your agreements. So, but overall, I would say amazing kids. I love them. I'm growing up too, so I'm learning to re-grab things like my personal health, emotional health, time with my wife, thinking about beyond our kids leaving. It's happening so fast. So I am enjoying the time when these kids are teenagers, and I know that it's very, very temporal. It's passing so fast. We got here quickly, and it's moving very quickly. I could feel it.
Thanks, Don. Anything else you want to say?
Oh, I love my family. I gave them everything I had, and I'm really grateful to have had that blessing. I know that it's not easy for many, many families for many, many different reasons, but we're completely blessed. We're completely covered in love, and I think love does cover over a multitude of sins. Love does help us get through all the hurt, misunderstandings, and it makes us laugh. So I would just say push deeper into love. Be a loving person. Become a person of love, and make that part of your family.
Well, before we even had our first child, I remember that you told me as long as they know they're loved, everything will be okay.
Yes.
And that just made first things first clear for me, and I appreciate your just foresight on that.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful that you are Gabe, Isaac, and Jaden's dad, and you are the best gift that they could have ever been given. And I know they've appreciated your example and your love and your care and just your thoughtfulness and intention in their life. They are going to be able to reflect on that and know that they've been blessed by that in ways that they couldn't have even seen when they were 5, 7, 9, or today 13, 15, and 17. So we love you. Thank you for being so wonderful. Thank you for leading our family and loving our kids. And I love being your wife.
That's a great ride. I love you.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.